What if there was a therapy, like a really simple therapy that could like fundamentally change the way we think, like
Mm,
unlock some whole new level of consciousness?
mm.
Would we even be ready for that as a society? I mean, think about the ripple effects, like legally, socially, even spiritually.
It's a huge question, right? And it's exactly the kind of question that Aminata Diallo tackles in her project, Cartography of Consciousness, legal frameworks for a DMT-enabled society.
I was reading about this project. It sounds like it's pretty far out there. Like, is this really something we need to be thinking about now?
Well, that's the thing about Diallo's work that I find so compelling is that it's not just, some kind of like far off science fiction. She's looking at the very real potential of DMT therapy becoming mainstream. And she's
Hmm.
thinking about the practical, legal, and ethical frameworks we would need to navigate that kind of shift in consciousness.
Okay, so just for our listeners who might not be familiar, what exactly is DMT?
So DMT is short for dimethyltryptamine. It's a powerful psychedelic compound. It's naturally occurring. You can find it in some plants and animals, but it's what it does to human consciousness that's really fascinating. It can induce these like really intense but short-lasting psychedelic experiences. People often describe them as profoundly spiritual or mystical, even life-changing.
And Diallo is imagining a future where this kind of experience is like widely accessible.
Exactly. And not just accessible, but kind of integrated into our lives, like
Yeah.
used for personal growth and mental health. But, to make that happen, we'd need to think about a whole lot of things. Like, how do we make sure it's safe? Who gets access? How do we protect people from being exploited? It gets complicated pretty quick.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I think what really struck me about this project is that Diallo isn't just like speculating. She's actually creating these cartographic representations
Well,
to
yeah.
map out these different aspects of a DMT-enabled society.
The cartography part is really cool, right? It's kind of like imagining a map, but instead of continents and oceans, you're looking at the legal frameworks, the ethical considerations, the shifts in social norms that we might see in a world where DMT is widely
Yeah.
used. So you can kind of see how all these different things are interconnected.
Now, could you give us some concrete examples of like the kinds of legal and ethical challenges that Diallo is mapping out?
Sure. One of the biggest is equitable access, right? Like, if this therapy becomes commonplace, how do we ensure that it's available to everyone, not just the wealthy? How do you prevent a scenario where, like, only the privileged few get to benefit from this kind of powerful personal transformation?
That's a great point. And what about like the regulatory side of things? I mean, wouldn't there need to be some serious oversight if DMT therapy becomes a whole industry?
Absolutely. You would need to have strict safety protocols to make sure the DMT is being administered responsibly, ethical guidelines to prevent abuse or exploitation. And, you have to think about things like informed consent.